be like a small meeting on the side. And there wasn't going to be a lot of action going on. And then that changed. And then here I am. Also, I'm obviously a young person, but I don't really attend what one would call young people meetings that much anymore in my recovery. And that's nothing against it. It's just not the path that I'm on. So when I needed to find speakers, it was a little harder because it wasn't like I heard people every day and knew exactly who I wanted automatically. But that doesn't mean I don't have great people in my life. So my first speaker is Allison, and I have only really recently gotten to know her because she's at my house a lot. Which works out for my benefit, living in a sober house. And from what I know about her, she has a good story and is a great speaker. And so here's Allison.
There we go. I am 4'10". My name is Allison, and I'm an alcoholic. I tried standing up at this podium earlier, and we realized that I need like a step stool. Like I said, my name's Allison. I am an alcoholic. This room is like going on forever, and there weren't this many people in here when we first sat up here. I am very, very nervous, and am very thankful that Janelle asked me to come speak at this meeting. I've never spoke in such a large meeting before, but I'm sure I will do well. I prayed up here beforehand, and I'm 30. I guess I don't know if that would still be considered a young person. Yeah, but they're all laughing at me. My sobriety date is April 17th of 2011, which means that today I have 10 months that I get to share with you all in here. This is better than getting a chip tonight to me. And I'm what some people would call a retread. My original sobriety date was March 12th of 2001, and I managed to stay sober at that time till about December of 2009. When I got into a relationship and got so busy with that and with my daughter, and went to the gym a lot, and I had moved, and I had gotten away from AA. The place I had moved was like the country to me, and I'm from the DC area, so it was a bit of a culture shock. And, they didn't do AA like we did it back in Northern Virginia. So it wasn't wrong, but it was just different, and they were all looking at me, and, I don't know. Just other things became more important to me than staying sober, which is the real deal. And, it says in the big book, not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. This time I had not thought of the consequences at all. I commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. And I've just recently been reading my big book in preparation for this. I normally read it like every night, but yeah. So that's from the chapter more about alcoholism, which is probably my favorite chapter in the big book, and that was definitely true for me. Like I said, I had some time, was away from the program, and was living with somebody. So, of course, my relationship absolutely came above God, came above everything. I don't know about any other woman in this room, but I am codependent. And, a relationship was about as important to me as being sober. That has, luckily that's changed. But at the time, being in my 20s and getting sober, like I thought that I would only be complete if I had a man in my life. And, went through all the wrong ways of trying to get them, mainly by sleeping around and getting a reputation and all that. And, I have some more value to myself today through step work and through having a sponsor and having a network of women that I rely on more than I rely on the men. Because I know that you all will save my ass, not pat me on it. So, I was in this 3-year relationship, 3.5-year relationship. We lived with my daughter, and I lived with him. He's not the father of my daughter, because I got pregnant in treatment. Yeah. Again, I'm like doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. But that resulted in me having a child, him leaving, and I've raised her by myself. She just turned 10 in January. Anyway, yeah, so I'm in this relationship, not really talking to anybody. I'm like mad at everybody. I'm resentful against people because I'm not okay with myself. And I've learned that a lot in these rooms, that when I'm not okay with myself, I'm not okay with you either. I have a lot of judgment. I have a lot of just nasty things that can come out. And I've had to be really diligent about that this time, because I don't want to have to drink again. I know that I don't have to drink again, and I know that I don't want to. And this man that I was living with, he wasn't going to meetings either. He was in a very stressful job, and he started shooting up and like was trying to lie to me about it. Like, it's not obvious when somebody's like nodding out like in your house. It was pretty obvious. There was like an incident where he was supposed to be watching my child, and like all this crazy stuff happened, and a neighbor came over, and anyway, I kept saying, I'm going to leave. I would like pack up my stuff. And then I would be like, but I can't go back home because then I'm going to be so embarrassed that I didn't like fix this on my own, and get, and save him, which I know that I can't do. This happened a couple more times until, one of his friends and his girlfriend who drank came over, and she had beer with her. And like it said in the book, I mean, all the consequences that could happen, all the time, all the hard work, all the pain that I'd gone through to get that time, it just flew out the window. And I really have it's really the alcoholic insanity that lives in me and that will take over my life and over my brain if I don't go to meetings, if I don't talk to a sponsor, don't talk to a network, and don't work the steps. And I mean, the steps is the main thing. If I don't get right with myself, I'm going to fall apart. And it's only a matter of time. I think it was less than a year. And and at the time, I thought everything was fine, and it wasn't. That relationship controlled my life. And really, after coming back in the rooms, I came to realize that I was willing to die for it, just as I was willing to die to drink and to use drugs, because drugs are a part of my story. I won't go too much into that, though. And so this girl had beer in my house. My daughter was at my parents' house for the weekend, and I just picked up a beer. Like, it was ginger ale, like it says. And I was just like, okay, well, I've done this now. I can't take this back. And so I was off to the races again. And immediately I was like, I'm not going out just on alcohol. We need to get some drugs involved, because that would be like, obviously the sane thing to do. It's totally insane. And I don't know that I ever thought that I was going to be in control of it, because I've never questioned the fact that I'm an alcoholic. I know that. I mean, like, I understand the big book, I think people that aren't alcoholic are not going to understand it, or I mean, they shouldn't really, So, I was probably back out there for about 1.5 years. And within that time, I was still in the relationship. We were like going back and forth. I mean, and I started drinking every day, and it wasn't like I wasn't. I don't know. Like, I knew that I wasn't not going to drink every day. I knew that I was going to drink every day. But it wasn't the same as when I had first come in. I came in when I was 19, and, I was like out partying all the time. I was like a little rave girl in the DC area. I thought it was hot shit. And I was like so naive. I like had no clue what I was walking into when I went into treatment, and then, stayed sober and got into AA. But yeah, I stayed in this relationship, which made me miserable. And it was like we enjoyed making each other miserable. It was one of those that was like painful for everybody else to watch, but we just like loved the misery of it. And it seems so crazy to me now, but in it kind of made sense at the time. I have no idea. So, and I forgot to say this. I work in a treatment center. So after work behavior kind of conflicted with that. And, I went through this treatment center that I work at, which is really cool. It's kind of everything came full circle. And when I got my job there, I had just relapsed and they were like parading me around like I had all this time and it was awful. And I hated lying to everybody. But at the time I was like, I have to lie to everybody because I don't know what my parents will do. My parents are so like overbearing. I'm like, I don't know what my parents will do. Like I'm going to get in trouble. And really, I'm just hurting myself. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely lied to everybody for at least a year. And when the time came that, I don't know, I was sitting on my couch one day. I had already moved back to Northern Virginia. And this thought came into my head. And it was definitely a God thought. And it was just like, you will never be happy again if you don't come clean to the people that you love. Because although my parents really are overbearing and very codependent with me, like, they're the kind of parents that will... I'm the only girl. I have a twin brother and an older brother, and they're going to love me no matter what. Even if I'm still doing whatever I'm doing, they're still going to love me, and they just want me to be okay. And, around this time, like, I definitely needed more help with my daughter because, I needed to drink and I needed to do drugs, and she kind of got in the way of that. And luckily, she did spend enough time with them that it didn't seem too out of place, but I knew in the back of my head that I was giving up that time with her for myself. And so I eventually told my parents and they were just like, oh, I think they just thought like, oh, it's over with. And she's just going to go back to meetings and get sober again and all that. And I eventually told my boss, and I think he thought the same thing. Cause at the time, I think I was trying to stop drinking. But I realized like it was really hard. And it wasn't like I just had gone back into treatment and got sober that way, like I did the first time. I really saw like being on my own and being an adult, like nobody's watching me. And every night I would drive home and I would be like, oh, I'll just drink again tonight, And now I was old enough to buy liquor, which was something. I mean, I didn't have to like scheme and lie about my age and stuff in bars to get it. And so, it was hard. Like, I don't know. It was just a lot harder, like having such access to alcohol. And I would start to like sweat and I would be like, man, why do I feel like this? I don't know, because my detox experience before was like I shook in the morning when I first came in here. I couldn't sleep at night. And I just had like different symptoms this time. And it was hard to be living with somebody who was drinking and me not drink. Because we went back and forth where we would stop and then one of us would want to pick up. And so then the other eventually picked up without like a care that the other person, very selfishly, like, I don't care if he starts drinking again. I know that I want to drink. Just this alcoholic insanity going on. And I finally, like, I knew probably like years before we broke up that I needed to leave, but I couldn't. And finally I had stopped drinking on April 17th. And, I was like, I'm not going to drink again. And I started going back to, even before I started going back to meetings, I contacted this woman, Ann. She actually spoke here last night. And, I was like, I need to reach out to somebody or I'm just not going to make it. Like, I can't do this on my own. I don't want to do this on my own. And I need people outside of my relationship that aren't my family that are going to help me. Cause I knew enough then to know that the women in AA are going to grab me and help me through whatever I need. And I called her, she met me at a Starbucks and I said, I've relapsed and I really need help. I'm really terrified and miserable in my relationship. He's still drinking. I don't want to drink. I don't know how to not drink right now. And, she like grabbed me by the hand and she said, everything's going to be okay. And I asked her to be my sponsor right then. And, we immediately started working on the steps. And I think it was within a week of me releasing that like secret, like I was letting people know and such weight was off my shoulders that I was like, I can do this. And, I was like, I just need to do what I need to do for myself. I need to be going to meetings. I need to be taking care of my daughter and I need to like cut myself off emotionally from this relationship, which was really hard to do, along with stopping drinking. And, so much of my identity was in this person. Like, I don't know, like I became him, you know what I mean? I mean, hopefully some of you know what I mean. Not at all. And, you know, I remember I went to this obscure NA meeting and in DC where I knew nobody except the guy that I was with, because he was going to stop drinking then too. Right. And I was like, I'll pick up a chip there. I'm like, nobody knows me here. Like, who am I fooling? Like, and so I picked up a chip there and I felt like I was still lying to everybody, you know, because I still hadn't really come clean to the people that knew me. And I remember this exactly. On a Sunday night, I went to the Independence Club in Springfield, Virginia. And when the came time around for the chips, I mean, I kept my head down the whole time up until that point. And when they started doing the chips, it was actually, I had a month. I didn't come clean until I had a month, you know, because I needed a little time under my belt. I mean, a month is like a big deal for anybody that has a month, but I'm just saying, like, you know, it couldn't be at, you know, my 24-hour chip. But anyway, so when it came time and they got to a month, you know, like I stood up with my head down and like, for some reason, like everybody that I knew was in the meeting that night. I was like, where are they all coming from? They're never all here. But it was good because it got me really, really humble. And whatever like hot mess I thought I was before, like I was shrunken down. I mean, even more so down to size. And, my ego became the size that it became, you know, God size. It became right sized. And, I picked up that month chip and, it was terrifying. And everybody clapped really, really loud for me. And some people even like, you know, hooted. And that made me feel somewhat okay. But especially afterwards, people were like, welcome back. We're glad you're back. We're glad to see you. And especially when I told them that I had moved out of my apartment, because by then I had left this guy. They were like, that's really good. Keep coming back. We're glad you're here alone. And I was like, wait a minute, I guess y'all could see the mess that was. And most people could, obviously. Sometimes we can't see that within ourselves. But, you know, since I've come back, you know, my experience before was that I came into club meetings with people that were like 20 years older than me. And for whatever reason, that gave me a sense of security. But it was also easy for me to hide who I was. I could still put on like somewhat of a mask and be, you know, like everybody's like little sister or like their little kid. And people like mothered me. And a lot of the guys really tried to, I wouldn't say father me, but yeah. And, you know, I mean, again, I was able to stay sober for a long time, but there were I had a lot of issues with my sobriety before. Like I said, you know, I really didn't know how to be okay with myself. And I'll say this in a women's meeting, like I slept around a lot throughout the whole time that I was sober before and never happy with any of it, never satisfied, never fulfilled. It never made me okay, you know. And it's not, you know, I have to rely on God to make me okay and rely on working the steps and getting clean with myself. And when I came back in, I was so terrified, first of all, that I was going to drink again, but also that it was going to be like it was before. And I definitely didn't want either of those things. And, you know, I've never been comfortable with people my own age. I feel like I can't put that mask on. I don't know. I have to really be myself. And who am I, you know? And so I came back into young people's meetings and a lot of my young people's women are over there. Yeah. You know, and they like grabbed me and were like, we're going to help you and welcome back. And I'd kind of known a lot of them, you know, as acquaintances. But I really got into making women friends and relying on the women to help me because I know what I knew about men and I didn't want a relationship like I'd had before. And I definitely didn't want to be sleeping around anymore either. So the first 3 steps have really been very important to me this time in me, you know, really knowing that I am an alcoholic and that my life is unmanageable. And that is, you know, my thoughts, my actions. I come up with most of my ideas. Not my sponsor, and I think that's a little backwards. she actually told me that the other night. She's like, I think you think up most of your ideas and then report what you're going to do as if that's like sponsorship direction, and it's not. So I really, I think I don't think my alcoholism is as cunning, baffling, and powerful as it really is, but it is. I have an alcoholic mind, and I know for me, the book Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps of this program are the only way that I'm gonna, like I said, like I'm gonna be okay with myself, and that I'm really gonna be a woman in recovery and not still a toxic mess. And I've stayed sober this time so far. I've already worked the steps once, and I've started working them again with a different sponsor. And it keeps me focused. It keeps me praying. It keeps me not searching outside myself for the inner peace that I so desire, which is all that I've wanted since I came back in here. I don't know. I think it's probably time, and I don't really know what else to say. So I want to thank you all, and it's been great to speak.
Thank you, Allison. That was pretty fantastic. And so my next speaker is the first person that I asked to speak for this, and I started over 6 months ago, and she wouldn't give me a yes. And so every time I saw her, I kept saying, hey, so that conference thing, do you want to do that? And then she'd avoid the question again. So I feel very lucky that she actually agreed to do it. So I give you Amanda.
Wow. My name's Amanda. I'm an addict and alcoholic. My sobriety date is December 15th of 2000. I have a sponsor who works the steps, and I just recently got a new sponsor, and I'm not sure if I knew what I was getting myself into. She's really into the steps, like really into the steps. I guess I'll start, what it was like. I come from an alcoholic family. Both my parents were alcoholics and drug addicts. My mom is still actively drinking. My dad has since stopped, but he has no program, so technically he's still an addict. I remember my first drink. I was about 13, and the only thing that I really remember is that we were hanging out at some dude's house in a hot tub that was empty, drinking it seemed like the thing to do. We were drinking Bud Ice, and I remember because it had the cool bottle that looked like ice. And the only thing that I really remember from that night, other than that, was when I woke up the next morning. My face I had road rash on my face. I had no pants on, and I had an extra T-shirt on. And I have no idea how any of it happened. We put stuff together, and apparently I mistook the closet for the bathroom, and my friend's parents were not happy about that. But that's pretty much how it went for the rest of my drinking career. I was a blackout drinker from the beginning. And as time went on, I got into high school and started, experimenting with the drugs. They're a part of my story. I will be mentioning them. Sorry. I was proud of the fact, I wore it as a badge. I'm an alcoholic, but I qualified that I didn't drink before noon. I didn't drink alone, those kind of things that we rationalize it. And it was kind of a badge of honor. It wasn't until the consequences started piling up. They talk about how drinking was fun. I had a good time using. Then it was fun with consequences, and then it was just consequences. There was no more fun. When I was towards the end of it, it had gotten so bad that, I'd gotten arrested. I came into the program by way of Fairfax County Police. they gave me a nice little nudge. I'd gotten arrested for selling drugs, and while I was on probation, I managed to pick up a DUI charge and continue to drink for, the whole time that I was on probation, getting in trouble, going to court. The whole time, my parents didn't know anything about it. I told them I had job interviews because I had to dress up nice, my one court outfit every time. They bought it, I guess. I don't know. But like I said, my parents were probably just as messed up as I was, so they didn't care. They were smoking pot, whatever. So I went to court, and I'd gone into CATS, which is a detox program here in Fairfax, Virginia, and I did the outpatient there and managed to stay clean for about 30 days. As soon as I picked up a 30-day chip, and then I went to a wedding in Virginia Beach and got hammered. And that was it. I was right back to where I started. I came back and drank for a little while, and then some other stuff happened, and it was all kind of a blur. And I ended up back in court, and I had some time under my belt, a few months, and I was looking at a lot of time, about 2 years. And I took my sponsor at the time and some friends to court with me, and the judge at that time was, basically just throwing the book at people. Everybody, for every little thing, was, tons of time, whatever. And when I got up there, I'm shaking in my boots, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to jail for a long time. I can't handle it. And he suspended my sentence, and I didn't get any jail time. And that, I think, was my first true, I don't know if it was a spiritual experience, but, it was the first time that I actually saw that prayer worked and that, the program worked. If I, just let things go. There was nothing I could do about it anyways, I stayed sober for about 14 months. And then I met a boy. And he was not in the program, and he didn't understand, why do you have to do this? Let's just go hang out, whatever. So I relapsed. I was coming off of probation, and I ended up relapsing. Luckily, it was short-lived, but I think it was the best thing that happened because it truly cemented the fact that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict because, like I said, I went right back to where I had left off. They say AA ruins your drinking, and it did. It was not as much fun. I was when I woke up the next day, I called my sponsor, and I told her I was hungover, and I told her I felt like crap, and she told me, good, don't ever forget it, Don't ever forget the way that you feel right now because you never have to feel that way again. But I came back in and I felt horrible. Excuse me. I felt horrible because all these people had helped me for so long. And, when I went into the program, when I first came in the first time, I didn't talk to anybody. I was shy. I was angry. I think is more, I didn't look at anybody in the eye. I wore a baseball cap all the time and you could only see like this much of me. And I slept in meetings. I was, I didn't care. I was there for the wrong reasons. And when I came back after my relapse, I really tried to do it the right way. Pay attention to what was going on, not sleep in meetings. I was fortunate because the sponsor that I had, that I hooked up with, I didn't have a license or anything, so she basically was like, I'm coming to pick you up. You can't say anything about it. Get in the car, And she drugged me to meetings, and I did a lot of meetings at the hospital where I went to detox, and other local meetings. And so I got to know people, and I started opening up and really started letting people know who I was. And it was nice. I had people that actually cared. Because the people that I used with, they didn't care as long, the only reason they hung out with me is because I could steal pot from my parents and we could smoke for free. That was the only reason they hung out with me. But throughout the years, I've struggled. It wasn't all a piece of cake. After I want to say my fourth year maybe, I went through a funk and locked myself in my bedroom, and my grand sponsor called me. She was a feisty lady. She called me and said, if you don't get out of the bed and you don't get your clothes on, I'm going to come over there and I'm going to snatch every red hair out of your head. I was like, all right, I'm up. I'm out. I'm good. Let's go. But, and over the years, I've met a lot of people. I know, a lot of the people that I got sober with, I'm still friends with, and over the years we've, lost touch here and there, but I can go to a meeting that I haven't been to in 5 years, and everybody, the people that are still there, I can walk in and it's like home, and I don't think there's anywhere else that you can do that. You can be gone, you can be removed from a certain place or certain people, and then just pick up right where you left off. And I think that's what's so amazing about this program. If you stick with it and you do the steps and you try to get better. You can have that. I guess those are part of the promises. Like I said, I recently got a new sponsor. Within the last few years, I've really struggled with liking where I'm at in my sobriety. Like I said, back in December, I celebrated 11 years, and I always felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be in my sobriety. I saw people that had less time than me, that sounded way cooler than me, way more profound. They could quote the big book, because the big book is great, but I can't read it. Not on my own anyways. I have to have like an assignment, So, but that's not how, my program wasn't based on quoting the big book. I did my steps. I did what I had to do. But I've always felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be. My years say I'm up here, but I really felt like I was down here. And I've struggled with that. And I've had sponsors tell me and people tell me, you're right where you're supposed to be. I don't want to be where I'm supposed to be. I want to be where that person is. And the only way for me to get to where that person is to work the steps and, be okay with myself and be honest and be open to not doing things the way that I want to do them. I'm an only child, so I'm used to getting my way. And that doesn't always happen, because the people that I consider true friends are not going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to tell me what I need to hear. And they're going to say, you're being a bitch. You're being an asshole. Quit it. This is what you need to do, It's right here in the big book. If you would pick it up, then you would figure it out. But so over the past couple of years, I've really been trying to step it up. And I've been through a couple of sponsors, it didn't work with this person. And, but along the way, I've learned a little bit more. I think my program has gotten a little better each step of the way. And I'm hoping, I'm fortunate enough to sponsor ladies. Some of them are more of a challenge than others. So that definitely keeps me on my toes because I need to, I feel like I need to know what I'm doing. I can't tell them, read this or do this or whatever and then not know what they're talking about. When they come to me like, how do I do this? Well, I don't know. Although I am not afraid to say, I don't know, let me ask someone. I'm not going to pretend that I have it all figured out because I don't. I'm human. I can't know everything. I would like to think that I do, but I can't. And when I'm not trying to manipulate everything and not trying to fix it, then that's when things work a little easier. If I just do what I'm supposed to do, and then I find that things go a little bit more smoothly. Now I'm stubborn, and I can bang my head against the wall for as long as I feel necessary. But when I'm in, and gradually it's gotten better that I don't have to sit in the misery for very long. You know, if I feel bad, it takes less time for me to do something about it. And that's only because, you know, I've been around long enough to know that I didn't get sober to be in pain. I didn't get sober to be miserable. I got sober to have a life, the life which I gave away or didn't have when I was using. You know, because I didn't really do a whole lot. I went to work, I came home, I drank, smoked pot, you know, that's all I did. Stole from people, lied to people, cheated people, you know. I was a horrible person. And I'm not that horrible person today. You know, I met my husband in the rooms. We have an awesome little boy who hopefully will never have to grow up knowing parents that drink or use drugs like I did. You know, I want to be the mom that my mom couldn't be, you know. And I'm very grateful to the women in this program because of the nature of the relationship with my mother, I had to latch on to somebody and say, hey, I need a mom. You know, I need somebody to love me and nurture me. And they did. You know, I had a core group of ladies that took care of me. And I'm very thankful for that because I don't know if somebody had come to me and beat me over the head with a big book and said, this is what you're going to do, I would have been gone, you know. And that's what's great about the women in this program because we all get it. You know, we're all from the same kind of situation. Little things are a little different, but we all get it. You know, and my life is good today. You know, I'm busy, which is awesome because I'd much rather be too busy and not have enough hours in the day to get everything that I need to get accomplished than just sitting on my butt, you know, watching Jerry Springer, smoking pot, you know. Drinking warm beer, you know, just because I got nothing better to do. Not being a productive member of society. You know, I've learned a lot over the past 10, 12, however many years it's been since I've been coming around. And like I said, I'm very grateful to the women especially. And as nervous and as much as I didn't want to do this tonight, I'm very glad that Janelle bugged me for 6 months to do it. Because it's amazing to see this many people, this many women in a room that are all sober. It's awesome. And from where everybody came from, you know, it's amazing. And if you're new in here and this is your first taste of AA, really keep coming back because, you know, this is what it's about, celebrating our new lives and sobriety and being awesome. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. And something I forgot to say before she got up, one of the reasons I wanted to ask her is maybe it's just in the meetings that I go to or the area that I am, but it seems like women disappear in sobriety between coming in and getting a few years, and then they pop up and they've been there and their kids are grown, and I don't know where they are when they're new mothers or when they have 5 to 10 years and get married and all that stuff. And as somebody growing up in AA, it's very important to me to see women like Amanda who have a husband, have a job, have a kid, and are still out and still have fun. And that really makes a difference to me. So thank you. And then my last speaker, I worked with her for a little bit, which was pretty cool. But she is somebody that I feel oozes the promises. I don't spend that much time with her as much as I'd like to, but she always has a smile on her face. If she doesn't, when I hear her share, she comes up with a solution, and all the women whose lives she touches talk about how blessed they are to have her in their lives. And so with that, I'm going to give you Jimmie.
My name's Jimmie. I'm an alcoholic. And in case you're wondering, yes, that's Jimmie like a boy. She kind of stole my line. At first I was nervous with all these women, but as I was sitting there, I was really just blown away. there is like mad amount of women in here, and we're all sober. How cool is that? It's awesome. I come from a long line of alcoholics, as most of us probably do. I would say we all come by it pretty naturally. I come from a long line of hillbilly alcoholics. Yes. In my family, everybody did everything to excess. They bred them big and wild and crazy. My family is Irish. They love moonshine and shotguns. But me and my sisters, we got to be first generation off the mountain. We got to be raised in the big city. So coming from parents who pronounced our last name Pears instead of Powers, I was always a little different, Yeah. Is it a fruit or is it Powers? Nobody knows. And that's how my life started, being different, and my father and mother were stone cold, true alcoholics. But I got lucky because my dad got sober when I was 1. I never had to see that. My dad was type 1 diabetic, and he went into a diabetic coma when I was 1 year old, and the doctor said, if you drink again, you'll die. And he quit. He went into treatment. This was back in the 70s, and he did it right. My mom, unfortunately, still to this day, loves her 12-pack on the Miller Lite, and they divorced as a result, and I stayed with my dad. So I became an AA kid. I was the kid that was dragged around to the meetings in the smoky kitchens waiting for their dad to finish. Please, can we go home, And I had a twin sister, so I had a little partner in crime with this. And we were kind of a novelty act, Our names were Jimmie and Jamie, and we looked exactly alike, and we were very cute and, obnoxious. And that's how I grew up. I grew up in AA. I like to kind of look at it like, I had a head full of AA before I ever drank. And I don't know if that was good or bad. I think it helped me get sober quicker. But I also think that it, helped with mad amounts of rebellion that I had growing up. My sobriety date is December 2nd, 1991. Thank you. I was 18 when I got sober, and yeah, that means I'm 38. Yes. And I did get sober in Young People's AA in the Northern Virginia, DC area. Absolutely, it saved my life. There's no question about it. If there were not sober young people when I was 18 years old and rolling into meetings, I would not have stayed. I love all the older women in my life now, and I am one of those older women, I think, to a lot of girls. But at 18, it wouldn't have worked. I would have run. I would have run far, far away. I just wanted to hang out and have fun. And that's what Young People's AA did for me. It gave me a place to have fun while I figured out how to stay sober. I started drinking at around 11 years old. And having this voice in the back of my head, my dad's 6'4" booming voice saying, if you ever take that first drink, you're screwed. And I did it anyways, because I was in a situation where the girl I was with was really cool. She was like pretty, and she was new to the school, and everybody loved her. And I was like this tomboy who was overdeveloped and taller and awkward. And I just wanted to be cool like her, and so I did what she did. Except when presented with alcohol, all I knew was alcoholic drinking. My mom would drink a whole bottle of wine. So when she gave me the bottle of wine at 11 years old, I drank it. The whole thing. And it didn't end well. I was really sick. But before I got really sick, there was this period in there, where it was really awesome. Where I suddenly was no longer insecure. I was suddenly the pretty girl. I was suddenly the coolest chick in the room. I was everything on the outside that I wanted to be on the inside. And I was hooked. I had a lot of guilt after that first drink because of my family and because of growing up in AA and watching my older brothers and sisters drink and get really screwed up. And I tried to not do it. I tried to hold on to that guilt and how sick I felt and how gross it was. But that euphoric recall of that confidence, I just couldn't let it go. And all through junior high, it was off to the races. And by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was drinking every day. I did do drugs as well. I will leave that out of my story, but I think for a lot of kids today, addiction is addiction, and I will do anything when I'm in my addiction to not be me, to not feel, including, huffing lighter fluid, anything, including sex, including food, including anything I could get my hands on to not feel. And that's the kind of teenager I was. I did everything to excess, just like my family. By the time I was 17, I had been kicked out of my home. I was dropped out of high school. My family didn't want anything to do with me. And I was sleeping on some dude's couch, in favor for having sex with him. That was the deal, and that's where my drinking took me. I saw, by the age of 17, I saw stuff that, no woman should have to experience, 17 or 27 or 57. I watched somebody almost get killed with a pool ball cue. I was physically assaulted. I would do anything I could to get high or drunk. And I hated myself. I hated who I'd become, and it's funny because I was at a party. Well, let me back up. I had gotten kicked out because I assaulted my stepmom, this beautiful, awesome woman who moved into our home and took over the raising of me and my twin sister. She is an addictions counselor. My dad had met her going to meetings. So, we were all screwed. My dad's sober. My stepmom's an addictions counselor. I mean, we did not stand a chance. But my sister had seen me at a party, and I kept my drinking kind of away from my sister because I knew it would scare her. I think like instinctively, not logically, but instinctively. And I was at a party and all the alcohol was gone. And I was like going through the people's shelves. I was like staring. I'm like searching, for alcohol of, some stranger's house. And my sister witnessed this. I didn't even know she saw me. And she went home and told my parents that it scared her and she didn't recognize me and didn't understand what she saw. And my parents confronted me and they told me that I had to get sober. And I basically was like, I don't have a problem. I'm fine. And my stepmom said, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And I said, well, what if I don't have a desire? And she said, well, then I guess you better fake it. And that's what I did. I faked it. I went to meetings. I didn't share. I would pick up chips and bring them home to my parents. Like, look, I got a chip for you. And I did this for a long time. And I was still getting high. I had a gallon of rum in my closet. I would come home from a meeting, hand them my chip, and go get drunk in my room at night at 2 a.m. This made sense to me at the time. And one night, in the midst of all of this, my stepmom tried to stop me from leaving because I think she knew I was getting high and had figured it out. And I assaulted her. And I left anyways. And my stepmom was about like 4'11", 90 pounds. She's kind of Allison's size. So it was easy for me to get past her and leave. And when I came home the next morning, my dad sat me down and, we have this deep talk. And I was like, Dad, are you going to kick me out or what? Like, seriously, I'm your youngest daughter. You've alienated everybody else. Like, all this attitude and this anger and this rebellion. I just threw on my dad. Because I felt like shit about myself. I'm sorry. I felt bad about myself. And my dad called my bluff and he said, you know what? Yeah, I am going to kick you out. I need you out by 3:00 this afternoon. And I left. And I stayed gone for several months. So I was now a high school dropout because I wasn't living at home. So I wasn't going to school. I worked for my father, so I no longer had a job. And I was sleeping on this random dude's couch, which was really sketchy. And I went into school one day. And at this point, I'm 18. And I go into school to get something. And I see my sister. And she walks up to me. And these are these moments that I think we all get throughout our using where God's grace really does work if we choose to see it. And for whatever reason, in this moment of all the other opportunities I had, I chose to see God's grace in my life in this moment. My sister told me that my dog missed me, that he sleeps every night outside of my bedroom. And it killed me, I was like, who am I? The intervention that my family did with all their loving letters, the school intervention that I did with all of their accolades, none of that worked. It was Stryker. It was my dog. That's what got me. And it didn't hurt that my sister then looked at me and said, "And seriously, are you going to be a loser for the rest of your life?" And yeah, that's where I was heading. And so it took about 2 days and a lot of alcohol for me to go home and beg my parents to take me back, and that I would go to meetings, and that I would do the right things, and that I wanted to graduate high school, and I wanted to be somebody. So they did take me back. I struggled a little bit more, and throughout this time, like I said, I was picking up chips, and it finally got to the point where I was supposed to have a year sober. And this was like after a couple known relapses and, this period. But I kept going to meetings and picking up these chips because I sort of got I got the fellowship kind of got under my skin. You guys were so awesome to me, and you were so loving and accepting that I just wanted to go back. Even if I was getting drunk after the meetings, I wanted to be there. And I was finding that I was waiting to drink or to get high till after the meetings. And that was this kind of weird, subtle shift that happened. And I actually, in all of my grand knowledge, celebrated a year sober. I wasn't sober. But I celebrated it because that's what my dad wanted, because he thought I was sober at this point a year. And my dad had this big thing of every time somebody in my family would celebrate, he would have the whole family stand up and just, look at this AA family. Aren't we awesome? And so here's all my brothers and sisters. There's 7 of us. My dad, my stepmom, all these people standing up in my honor. And I am so full of it, it's not even funny. And I go home that night, and I have this memory bubble of several months back, drinking in a hotel room with my boyfriend at the time and fighting over this bottle of wine to the point where he grabs it from me and pours it down the sink. And I break down sobbing. It's like the end of the world. And I had forgotten that. I had forgotten that had happened to me. And I was like, wow, I'm not sober. I'm not even remotely sober. And I just lied to everybody who loves me and who has supported me and who has taken me back after assaulting my stepmom and quitting jobs on my dad and just all of it over and over and just being a horrible, selfish, self-serving person. So my answer looking in the mirror that night was that I decided that my only recourse was to inhale enough lighter fluid so that I would stop breathing. It didn't work, obviously. It gave me a really bad headache and I kind of passed out. But that was where my mind was, that I would rather inhale lighter fluid than face the reality of life sober, and that next morning I went to school. I got drunk. I came home knowing that my parents would know that I was messed up so that I could come clean, because I didn't know how else to tell the truth. And my stepmom, first thing she said was, "You're not sober right now, are you?" And I was like, "No, I am not." And she said, "Okay, are you going to a meeting tonight?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I had a ride, and I went to the meeting, and I sat quietly, and I didn't say a word. And I went to a meeting the next night, and I picked up my last 24-hour chip. And I was so scared. And I thought everybody was going to hate me. I just celebrated a year sober, and all these young people and all the fun stuff we had done and all the illegal fun stuff we had done, like, bridge jumping into the Potomac and, pool hopping at 2 a.m. This is crazy young sober alcoholics doing crazy fun stuff. I thought they were all going to hate me, and not one person hated me. I got more hugs and more love and more tenderness in that one moment than I had in the whole 2 years prior that I'd been trying to get clean and lying about it. And that was it for me, I knew one day at a time that I did not ever have to feel the way I felt the night before ever again. Have I done it perfectly? Oh my gosh, no. No. I have messed up. I have lived. I have lied. I have been a cheat in recovery. I have been everything that I was using in recovery. But the amazing part is I have tools to not be that girl today. And I have also been caring and giving and understanding and selfless. My first 2 years sober, really sober, I didn't work any steps. I didn't get a sponsor. I was like, this fellowship stuff rocks and the rest of it is for the birds. And what ended up happening is at 2 years sober, I was, again, jobless, homeless, boyfriendless, friendless. My same spiritual malady was there, sober or not. And I needed to do some work. And at that point in my recovery, when all of my friends had pretty much walked away, I had cheated on my boyfriend, I had quit my job in a mad rush, my car had gotten totaled, my clothes thrown away. I might as well have been using in the sense of the chaos swirling around me. I decided that drinking was better than this. That's what I decided. And another moment of God's grace intervening in my life, and another huge moment of first step for me. This is pre-caller ID. I'm dating myself, but it's okay. I go to pick up the phone to call an old using friend, and the phone rings, and I pick it up. Hello. And it's this dude I'd been hanging out with, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing," click. So the phone rings again. I pick it up. He's like, "Seriously, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Nothing. What do you want?" And he's like, "I want to hang out." And I was like, "Not going to happen." And he's like, "I'm taking you to a meeting. Meet me down front in 10 minutes. And I hung up the phone and I was just like, oh, this isn't working. Nothing is working. I don't want to go to a meeting. I don't want to feel any of this. But something made me put my shoes on and get in that elevator and go meet him in the lobby of my apartment building. Something did. And I sat in that meeting and I sobbed and I shared and I got a sponsor that day and I started working steps. And that is when miracles for me started happening. My first, fourth, and fifth step blew me away. I could not believe how ignorant I was to how completely messed up I was. And it was one of those really big moments for me where I could say, okay, now I get it. I get why I hurt so much and why I hurt people. So now what? And the next step for me was to finish the rest of the steps. It was all I knew, My 8th and 9th step changed my life. Going back to my stepmom, this woman who chose to raise me when my mom didn't. I didn't even know my mom again until I was 18 years old, from 5 to 18. My stepmom who chose to raise me when she didn't have to, who loved me in spite of me. I was able to sit down and look her in the eye and say, "I'm sorry I assaulted you. I'm sorry I made your house awful. I'm sorry that I was horrible to you." And she was able to look me in the eye and say, "I love you and I forgive you. And I'm glad you're in my life." There is not a moment like that I can hold on to. I can hold on to that the most and say, this is why I do what I do, so that I can have those moments of peace, that moment of happy, joyous, and free, where it was okay that I sucked and that alcoholism had completely wrecked me and had wrecked my relationships, and that I could turn around and go back to this woman and just, she loved me. She loved me in spite of me. It's a beautiful thing. And, several years into my recovery, about 8 years sober, sponsoring girls, really involved, done all my step work, really just trying to give back to young people's AA. One of my older sisters, who never really quite made it, was found dead in an abandoned van in Southeast DC of a heroin overdose. And it wrecked me. It wrecked me to my core, for so many reasons. Why couldn't she get it and I did? Why my sister and not yours? All of it, all of the questions that you ask yourself in that time. But I knew one thing as clear as day, is no matter how much pain I was in, I could not use. I just didn't have the option to use, because now I know my DNA. I know where my DNA leads me. It leads me to shooting up needles in my neck. That's how my sister died. And I don't want that. I don't want that from my mom. I don't want that from my dad, my stepmom, my siblings, from me. And it was a really, really hard year after that. And it was really about back to basics for me. It was about doing the next right thing. And for me, I work with the public, so I have to smile a lot. I have to go to work and be happy. And how do you be happy at 24 years old and your sister's dead? You don't. You just fake it. which I've done a lot in my life. It was the greatest advice my stepmom could have given me. But what I did was every day when I came home from work, I lied on my bedroom floor with my face against the carpet. That was the next right thing for me. And I cried. And I would lie there and I would cry until I didn't need to cry anymore. And I would get up and I would go downstairs and I would be with my husband and I would make dinner and I would go to a meeting and I would try to help another alcoholic. And it was literally the best I could do for about 6 months. About a year after my sister died, my dad died. I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? My dad died of this disease as well. His diabetes finally did kill him. But he died 60 years old and 25 years sober, surrounded by his family. Yep. And I tell you, my dad was a bitter, mean, passionate drunk. For him to get 25 years sober and really live it was inspirational to anybody whose lives he touched. But at 26 years old, with a dead dad and a dead sister, and a little bit spiritually void, I was at another crossroads. I was not close to God. I was nowhere near close to God. And my decision was to not go to meetings. It was a horrible decision. I'm just going to tell you that now. And it wasn't like I boycott meetings. It was more of a slow thing. The less connected I was with prayer and God, the less connected I was with meetings. The less connected I was with meetings, the less the fellowship mattered to me. And I walked away from people who literally, after my sister died, would not leave me alone, who supported me and carried me when I could not carry myself. And I walked away because I was angry and I was resentful and I couldn't figure it out. And for 3 years, I didn't go to meetings. Not one meeting. Can anybody guess if I was happy or not? I was miserable. I was miserable. I was lonely. I was lonely. And I think resentful at AA and lonely alcoholic is a bad place to be. One of my other sisters, my twin sister and my best friend in that time decided to go back out. So here I am. I haven't been to a meeting in 3 years. I'm completely disconnected from God in the program and the fellowship. And now I'm completely alone. And I don't know what to do. I don't want to go back to meetings because that humility is just, it seems impossible. And I get a call. God's grace in my life yet again. From this guy that I'd gotten sober with. We had been roommates. He had been in my wedding. He was one of mine and my husband's best friends. And he had been living in California and we hadn't spoken for 3 years about. And he's like, hey, I'm home. I got divorced. I need to hang out. What's up? How's it going? What are you doing? Let's hang out. And I was like, oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? Get dinner? And he's like, no. We need to go to a meeting. And I was like, I don't know about that. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't really do that meeting thing anymore. And there's silence on the other end of the phone. And he said, Jimmie, I'm not seeing you unless you meet me at a meeting, period. And I was pissed. I was like, this is blackmail. This is manipulation. And I told him so, and he said, you're damn right. And I met him in a meeting. I decided that I have been proven over and over and over again that God's will works, and this was God's will in my life. And I learned something else following God's will. God's will never take me where God's grace cannot protect me. Never. And there is no way that showing up at an AA meeting and humbling myself and saying, I hurt, I'm lonely, I'm separated from you guys was ever going to hurt me. All it did was help. And it put me right back in the center. And it was slow. I mean, I have a lot of demons and it's taken me, I'm stubborn. I am stubborn and rebellious to my core. And I think all of us women can probably relate to that. It took years for me to fight these demons. And it took years for me to really be honest about all of me. And this time around going to meetings, and it's been years since then. I mean, that was when I had 13 years. So it's been 6-7 years since then. At first, the fellowship was what I did because that's what I knew. And that's what I needed to stay sober another few years. And it worked. But I was still me, and I'm always still me, and I'm always a sick alcoholic. I am resentful. I am self-serving. I am full of self-pity. And I love to avoid feeling. I love it. I will do anything to avoid feeling. So I continue to do a little bit of that. And, I hit another bottom in my recovery going to meetings. I was acting out a lot. And I broke some rules at work, and my career is like anybody who knows me, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. My career is a lot of my identity, and that's not a good thing. I value it. I'm proud of it. It's definitely a gift that I've gotten of this program to be a worker among workers. But I got fired, and I got fired bad. I went down with a blaze of glory. And I deserved it. I couldn't say, that was unjustified. It was totally justified. And it was very humbling. And it was all because of me acting out in my behaviors and trying not to feel. But that wasn't enough. I needed to continue to act out a little bit more, and wreck a very important friendship to me through my actions. And that was kind of when I had had enough. When I lose my job and I'm now uncomfortable in my social circle, I had to ask myself, who am I at 30-something years old and almost 20 years sober? What am I doing with my life? And I reached out. I reached out to 2 women in my life who, I will never be able to repay. And I was honest for the first time, fully honest with another woman about who I was. And what I do, not just drugs and alcohol, but all of it. And I have never felt so free in my life. It was very humbling and it was very hard, and I cried a lot. And what I did was I started working the steps again. And it's been awesome. It's been awesome. But something I learned this amazing thing through reworking the 3rd step at almost 20 years sober. It's not about me. It's not even remotely about me. I'm so self-centered that of course it was about me. But that's why I was still in pain. In the 3rd step prayer, it says, God, please help me have victory over my difficulties or whatever. So help me overcome my difficulties so that victory over them may bear witness to those you wish I serve. I'm getting better so I can help you guys. And that was like novelty. That was like amazing. It was like mind blowing, and this part of my recovery, this phase of my recovery has been about giving back. It's been not about me. If I can stay outside of myself, I'm okay. I don't have to act out. If I can give back, then I can understand a little bit more about that happy, joyous, and free. I have never really understood happy, joyous, and free. I've lived my recovery with a lot of angst and a lot of, but what if, and something that I realized, when I ask why me or why not me, why my sister? Well, why not my sister? Why should it have to be somebody else's sister? It was my sister, and it's my cross to bear, and we all have our crosses to bear. And the only thing that I can control in that is how I react and how I feel. I don't have control over any of it. And what I can do is be a daughter to my mother when she cries drunk every night because her daughter's gone. What I can do is be a good stepdaughter to my stepmom because she doesn't have her husband anymore to help her. My giving back, my amends to everybody is to be there, is to show up. It may be a selfish program because it helps me, but I don't think there's anything selfish in wanting to get better so that I can help the people that God want me to. I don't find anything selfish in that. I find freedom in it, complete freedom. I'll end with this. And I typically share about this when I share because it's really what keeps me sober when life is really, really hard. My sister and my dad both died as a result of this disease. My sister died alone. She was 90 pounds. She was homeless. And we were like we were hillbillies, but we were a good white bread suburban family, And it was, alcoholism and drug addiction can strike anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. My sister was incapable of being honest. She was one of those people. She had God's grace in her life over and over and over again, and she chose not to take it. And she died alone, and she died unhappy, and she left a 5-year-old daughter behind, who I don't know if she'll ever quite be the same as what chances she might have had. My dad, as I said, died 25 years sober, surrounded by his family. Before he died, he called all of us. He talked to us. We knew he loved us. He knew we loved them. And anytime life is hard and I am miserable, and there's even a question of drinking, I ask myself, which way do I want to die? Which is it? Because it's definitely not alone in an abandoned van. Never. And that's where alcoholism and drug addiction takes us. All of us have the ability to grasp onto this program and God and the fellowship, all of it, steps, fellowship, unity, God, all of it. And to be happy, joyous, and free, and die one day, hopefully old and wrinkled. Hopefully. I want wrinkles. I love my gray hair. But that's what I hope for. And I hope for all of us women that that's how we choose to go. That we don't choose to go by the route of our addiction, alone and miserable. I love this program, and I love the women in this program. And I really, really am proud to be a part of it, and honored that Janelle asked me to speak. I was really overwhelmed. I was like, me? Really? But don't you know how screwed up I am? But God speaks through us. And like I said, God's will never take us to where God's grace can't protect us. So thanks for letting me share.